In our assignment today, we are reviewing a scenario on a patient that was brought to the emergency department by the EMS team. The patient was found wandering in the park by a jogger. The patient is found to be a 57-year-old woman who began yelling obscenities at a jogger and ended up falling and scraping her face and arm. Due to how the woman was acting and her injuries, the jogger called 911 from her cell. Upon arrival of the EMS team, they found the woman bleeding, disoriented, combative, and accusing the EMS team of stealing her purse. She then came to the hospital, and in the process of coming to the hospital, it was noted that her hands were shaking severely and that she had a strong stale smell of body odor as well as urine, and was shouting at the doctors and nurses that she needed a bottle. With this, we're going to try and draw a conclusion on what may be happening to this patient with our first sight. In looking at this, my first thought is that the patient may be going through some form of withdrawal from substance abuse, whether it be drug or alcohol. These could cause a substance-induced mental disorder. With substance-induced mental disorders, generally the person will present with abnormal psychomotor behavior, depression, hallucinations, anxiety, mania, delusions, or even disorganized speech. This disorder can be caused by alcohol, hallucinogens such as LSD, opioids, cannabis, or even inhalants. So with what the patient was presenting with, we do see some of these, such as the hallucinations, such as thinking the EMS stole her purse, the anxiety with regards to the woman and thinking she was coming after her. The only thing is that there was no notation that the woman smelled of alcohol. So it makes me question if it is any form of alcohol, because even if they haven't had any, you usually have the smell on their clothing or it's coming through their pores because they have so much of it in their body. But this was not mentioned. As for any other form of drugs, in order to confirm if there was any type of drug, we would need to do blood draw to see what was in her system. Which that brought me then to my next area. And with that one, the other option would be for dementia. With dementia, generally they have psychological changes. That could be changes such as personality could be changing, their behaviors. They may appear agitated, have anxiety, depression, hallucinations, and difficulty with motor functions or even handling daily tasks. Now, once again, looking at the way the patient was acting, we see a lot of agitation, once again, hallucinations, difficulty handling tasks. That could be, if she doesn't have care at home, that could be caused why she is in a disarray. Again, these are different areas. However, once again, there's no true way to know what the patient's suffering from until we get our testing back. Our first step would be to do the blood work, see what comes back with that. If nothing pulls back with regards to drugs, then we'd probably want to do some CAT scans and then also meet with family, try and find who the family is of this patient. Once we find out what the patient is ailing from, we then have to find ways to treat them. If the disorder is caused by drugs or alcohol, the best bet would be for the patient to be placed in a rehab facility where they would be able to help the patient with the withdrawals and to slowly remove them from them. If it was due to dementia, unfortunately, there is no cure for that. So the step would be medication to help balance it, as well as occupational therapy for living, and just making sure that the patient's taken care of. The next area I'll move on to is a research question. And with this, it'll kind of review further on mental illness. In this section, we're reviewing the steps that are taken to manage mental illness. But first, we want to look at what it is. It's basically a disease that can completely take over a person's life. It'll affect the daily routines, the completion of simple tasks, and even completing responsibilities. Now, looking at our history, mental disorders are high in the U.S. In 2019, we saw approximately 51.5 million being treated for one form of mental disorder. And with coronavirus hitting, I'm sure in 2020 those numbers went a lot higher. But generally, the disorders that we're seeing are schizophrenia, depression, as well as bipolar disorder. Now, any of these disorders, as I stated, can disrupt a person's life tremendously. There are ways to manage these disorders, but it requires medication and regular therapy. With the therapy, the doctors can help the patient through rough times, struggles, or anything like that, and to also make sure and manage their treatments, that they're taking their medication. One of the issues that a person may run into is with regards to medical insurance coverage. With all of the medications as well as the therapy, it's very extensive as it's ongoing. It's not just a one-stop treatment. In the past, I think this was a more serious issue as there were limited benefits available for mental health and many had to pay out of pocket. However, I think insurance companies are spending more research and are starting to see the need that's there. We now see companies even offering mental health care for assistance. But again, in addition to the insurance plans, we still do need some improvements made, as those that are suffering mental health disorders, they still struggle to make it work. Such as insurance, they're keeping to their limit of treatments. They want to make sure they don't go over, so there's no extensive out-of-pocket. There is still a struggle there if the patient has a manic episode. They may end up at the hospital or something. So things still need to be done where the patient has somewhere to go should their treatment be needed, so that they don't stop their treatment altogether. Positive changes have been made for coverage, but again, there is still room for improvement. We do have to remember that these are individuals that are struggling with choices and situations daily, and we need to make the process as simple as possible without any concerns for them. As we see from our numbers, those that mental health effects are very high, and it does continue to grow. So that is my overview of mental health. Thank you.